Hey everyone, how's it going? Wheatley here. I am joined by...
The Volcanocraft, who said his name normally for once.
Yeah. And here we are with the first episode of Let's Play Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. Or Let's Stream, I should say. Uh, yeah, it was decided yesterday that I would be doing this without All-Seeing Eye. So, I decided, why not just start it right now? So, yeah. New game.
And I mean, with it being at noon, you have no worries of going on to midnight.
Yep. Turnabout Trump. No politics jokes, please.
Well, all it seems to have is a trump card that's probably going to be in there.
Showdown time. Made a mistake. You lose. Ah! Eek!
No, blood spattered on the painting. It was so nice.
I seem to be in a bit of trouble. Something like that. Dead. Someone hit him. Hard. Me? Please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should it come to that. April 20th, 9:37 a.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby Number 3. Panicked. Palms sweaty. I can admit it. I'm nervous. Ah, good morning. Good morning, sir. You look tense, Justice. Wound up tight. Wound up, sir? No, I'm loose. I'm fine. That screeching noise. Is that your voice? I suppose it's to be expected. Your first trial, and it's a homicide. I guess justice doesn't start small, eh? I'm fine. I got up at 5 a.m. to do my Cords of Steel voice workout. I'm fine. Actually, I want to... Wait, what is sapping the life out of my CPU? It's Discord. Of course it's Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably was going to be either way.
Let me just, That should be better. Ah, that explains it. I did detect a certain rasping quality to your screech. I overdid it again. As you know, your client today is a good friend of mine. I wouldn't want to let him down, if you get my drift. Drift gone, sir! I'm all over that drift! As it happens, I dined with him the night of the murder. We can't let this case fall through. Yes, I'm fine, sir. One more thing. Don't say you're fine quite so much. People might take you the wrong way. I'll be preparing our case. You might want to introduce yourself to the client. My name is Apollo Justice. If it isn't clear already, I'm a new attorney. And today is my first trial. Not that I'm worried or anything. The defendant has been accused of murder. My boss wants to help him out, of course, and so do I. I mean, there's no way he did it. Not him. No way. Whoa! Good, morning? Morning. It's all up to you today. First trial. Nervous. Meeting him. Cardiac arrest. I think I'm supposed to say something? Help? So you're... Hang on. Fine! I'm fine! Ah, Mr. Fine, is it? I did remember you having an odd name. Well, we're off to a great start. Are you sure you're okay? I mean, with me? Mr. Gavin is a top-notch defense attorney, and he's your friend, so why... You'll see. You can do it. Be confident. I'm really sorry this happened to you. I mean, It's time, shall we? Yes, sir. Okay, I need to focus. First trial. Here comes justice. April 20th, 10 o'clock a.m., District Court, courtroom number 2. The court is now in session.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor!
The defense is, fine. Ready, Your Honor. Mind going blank. Don't panic. Ah, too late. Your name was Mr. Justice, and this is your first trial? Yes, Your Honor, but I'm fine, really. Are you quite sure? Your voice sounds a bit strained. Mr. Gavin? Yes, Your Honor. I was under the impression that you would be heading up this case. That was my intention, yes. However, a defense attorney must always cede to his client's wishes, and my client specifically requested Mr. Justice. Well, of course he wants justice. But to... I get it. But to entrust his case to this greenhorn. Why? I do not exaggerate when I say that you're the best defense attorney in town, Mr. Gavin. Okay, so Gavin's got trial experience, fine. But does he have cords of steel? Then let's begin. The defendant may enter the courtroom. This is truly an unfortunate turn of events. I'm sorry we had to meet again under these circumstances. Long time no see, Mr. Wright. Let's put the past behind us, shall we? These days, I'm merely Phoenix Wright, piano player. Mr. Wright, how could this have happened? I won't speak of it further, then. If the prosecution would be so kind as to explain the charges. Mr. Payne?
To think I saw you enter this room a fresh attorney, and now I see you leave in chains!
Ah, Winston Payne, subtle as ever, I see.
Ahem! The crime occurred at the Borscht Bowl Club, a Russian restaurant. The defendant, Phoenix Wright, took the victim, a customer, and he hit him. Wham! On the head. Smack! Killed him cold.
A customer at the restaurant, you say? And the defendant? You say he was...
The pianist for the club, it seems.
Phoenix Wright. A pianist?
This is the weapon that took the victim's life. A bottle of grape juice. Grape juice is apparently our defendant's drink of choice.
The court accepts the deadly bottle as evidence. Yeah, that's totally grape juice.
Cough, cough, not wine. Cough, cough.
Yep. Deadly bottle added to the court record. Something to note, Justice. All evidence is filed in the court record. Make a practice of checking it frequently. The court record. Right. Tutorial shit. I've heard of that. Use the court record button to look at the evidence so far. I'm confident in your ability to handle this. Right. The court record button. Sounds like it's time for some hands-on action. No, I don't want to save.
Nice looking badge you got there.
Okay, let me examine. Just like it does in the 5th case of the first game. There's a number inscribed on the back of this badge. There are many numbers like it, but this one is mine! Proof that I'm an attorney.
20003.
That's a 9, I'm pretty sure. To tell the truth, I get a happy feeling inside just looking at it. So the victim was a customer at the restaurant. But just who was this, Shaddy Smith fellow?
We believe he was a traveler, Your Honor.
Traveler?
According to this passport, he had been out of the country for a number of years. He had only returned to this country recently, though his place of residence is unclear.
God, I hate doing his voice. And he had some sort of connection with the defendant?
That, too, is unclear at present, Your Honor. We believe they first met at the Borscht Bowl Club on the night of the crime.
If they had only just met, why murder? Perhaps the victim slighted the defendant's piano playing?
That doesn't appear to have been the case. No, the motive had nothing to do with the defendant's lack of playing skill. At least not piano playing. I'll let this photo explain what I mean. As we can see, a game of poker was in progress at the scene of the crime.
Wait a second. Isn't poker gambling? That's a crime in and of itself! Apparently that's how it works in this universe. I didn't know that.
Indeed, it appears our defendant has fallen to become the basest sort of criminal.
It is true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim, yet it was only that, a game, in the purest sense, a competition, Your Honor.
Competition?
Yes, a test of wits, a silent clash of passions. Only the cards, their back wreathed in blue flame, know that its final outcome. Come again?
The cards on the table had blue backs, Your Honor. I believe the defense was waxing poetic in an attempt to mystify those present and impress women.
That will be our first order of business here, then, to find out more about this fatal game of cards. Very well, defendant. You will testify to the court about the poker competition held that night of the crime. My pleasure. This is it, my first trial. Here goes nothing. Oops. I'm a pianist by trade, yet I can hardly play at all. My real job is to take on interested customers over at the poker table. The room where we play and the competition in there are the club's main attractions. The rules are simple. We play a game of poker using 2 decks of cards. That's all it is, a game, and our customers are happy. A pianist who can't play piano.
Better than a defense attorney who can't defend.
Very well. The defense may begin the cross-examination. Right, Your Honor. My first cross-examination. Don't blow it. Are you all right? You're sweating bullets. Bullets? Where? It's a figure of speech, Justice. Your voice sounds strained and raspy, too. My brain feels strained and raspy, sir. You've watched me perform cross-examinations many times, though you've never done one yourself, have you? Care for a refresher? What to do? Should I ask Mr. Gavin for a refresher course in cross-examination? No thanks. No need for help here, sir. I think I've got this one covered. I think you'd better do more than think, you know it, or you do not. I'm fine. The cords of steel are ready for battle. My weapons, press and present. Find any inconsistencies, any lies in the testimony, and reveal them to the court. That is cross-examination. Learn it, know it, do it.
I like how they still give you a tutorial,
Yeah.
even though you don't ask for it.
Yeah. Inconsistencies, lies, Phoenix Wright. As if Phoenix Wright would never lie, and it's up to me to prove it. The defense may begin the cross-examination. I'm a pianist by trade, yet I can hardly play at all. You can hardly play? Oh, I play sometimes, when customers demand it. So I play them one song. That's usually all they want. Was that supposed to be a boast just now? That title of pianist is a mask, a respectable face I wear for the world at large. You know what? Before we go any further, I'm gonna actually have to, see if I can, actually make this run a little better. Because this is ridiculous.
Maybe lower the quality a bit.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's an option.
I don't know how to do that. Emulation settings. Nope. Let's see. Three settings, sound settings, firmware settings, slot 1, slot 2. Oh, that seemed to have worked.
Yeah, I can definitely see it on my end, so...
Then why are you really at the Borscht Bowl Club? My real job is to take on interested customers over at the poker table. They pay you just to play poker? That would seem to be the case. I'm a professional after all.
Ah! Do I detect pride in that statement? It's just hard for an honest, hard-working member of society like me to imagine.
Yes, your imagination was always a bit limited, Winston.
What?!
I've played poker for 7 years in that little room, and I've never lost once. What? You see why the customers come now. Defeat the undefeated poker champion. It's quite a draw. That is, I'm quite a draw. Wait, you've never lost once? Not even one time? As I said, I'm a professional. He's played poker for 7 years and not lost once. Is that even possible? The room where we play and the competition in there are the club's main attractions. The room in that crime scene photo is an attraction? It has quite a history, actually. The Borscht Bowl Club used to be a gathering spot for black market types back in the day. Black market? All in the past, things like the black market are only on the silver screen nowadays. Suffice it to say, there were a lot of deals being made under the table, right there in that room. A smoky room, gambling hoods, you know? Just looking at this picture makes me feel bad. The bosses gather around the table, cutting deals safe from the eyes of the law. Meanwhile, a goon keeps watch through the small window. I can practically picture it now. That window does look like it would be good for keeping a lookout, but little else. The room had a few other tricks to it, though it was common knowledge to our regulars. At any rate, they come to play poker in a room steeped in history. Despite the dark past, it was all just good, clean fun. The rules are simple. We play a game of poker using 2 decks of cards. 2 decks of cards? A simple measure to prevent cheating. If you alternate 2 decks, no one can slip in cards. There's something else I noticed. In addition to the cards on the table, there are some lying scattered on the floor. Precisely. Cards on the table, cards upon the floor. Each one forming a complete deck. A crime scene painted blue by a sad sweep of cards. It's poetic, really. Incidentally, we use 2 types of cards at the club. One deck of cards was red, the other blue. As I recall, in poker you make 5-card hands. I can see how it would be easy to cheat. Heh. Yes, a game of hands. This competition you're talking about. I believe the court understands the nature of the game sufficiently. That's right! It was a simple game, after all. Are you sure? Huh? People are not murdered over simple games, Mr. Justice. Defendant, you were in the room for the very moment the crime occurred, yet you claim no connection to the crime? Now that's strange. What's strange? I was testifying about the competition that night. Asking me about the crime at this point is against the rules, Your Honor. Of course, I expected to hear a cry of objection from the defense. I completely let that one slip by. Don't despair yet, Justice. Sir? Right. There's something I'd like made clear. Namely, your connection to the case at hand, and I'd like to hear it from you. Sure, why not? Very well. The defendant will amend his testimony. Just one little press, and I've got myself a whole new testimony. Right. I plead silence regarding the murder, but I will say I never touched the murder weapon.
Okay, that's a bit more annoying than being able to save in the Ace Attorney.
Yeah. Well, this was on the DS. The other one was on Wii. Let's see. Deadly Bottle. Bears defendant Mr. Wright's Prince. So you say you didn't touch the murder weapon? This grape juice bottle, right? So I said. Something the matter, Mr. Justice?
Too bad our new defense attorney never learned how to play dumb.
What's this, Mr. Payne?
I examined the bottle in question, you see, and it was covered with the defendant's fingerprints.
Objection! No need to shout, Mr. Justice. I can hear you just fine. Excess yelling can damage the judge's ears and our case. But what about my cords of steel? Anyway, what's so strange about the fingerprints on a bottle in a restaurant? Well, that's true, but...
Oh, they wouldn't prove a thing if they were normal fingerprints.
Huh?
But the fingerprints on the murder weapon were upside down.
Upside down? What does that mean?
It means he was holding the bottle inverted, and there can only be one reason for that. Yes! To brain someone with the bottle!
Ah! Mr. Gavin, I think things just took a turn for the worse. Oh? I see no problem, Justice. Huh? The only thing that matters is the truth. There's a good reason for everything you see. Defendant, can you explain your fingerprints on the bottle to the court? I stand by my plea of silence regarding the murder. For now. Not very cooperative, are you? This could hurt your case.
I'm sure he's uncooperative because he's hiding something. There must be some reason.
Your Honor, you seem to have forgotten something. And what might that be, Mr. Gavin? On the night of the crime, who was it who reported the murder to the police? Reported?
Well, that was the defendant, Mr. Wright. But still, that...
Really?
Yes, well, according to the case file, the murder was reported from near the scene by a call from the defendant's cell phone.
Near the scene?
Let's take a look at the diagram of the murder scene, shall we?
And they don't give you that before?
You know what, I'm not going to do his voice for the diagram. The victim was murdered in a small room in the basement 2 floors down to ground level. Of course, cell phones can't get reception so far down. The defendant used the stairs in the hallway to go above ground. The call came from the first floor of the restaurant. I see, and this is the phone that made the call? Wright's cell phone added to the court record.
The defendant could have just fled the scene of the crime if he so chose. Yet he fulfilled his duty as a citizen and reported it to the authorities.
And you claim he is being uncooperative? Nice save, Mr. Gavin. I better not waste this. I think the prosecution has toyed with our client enough for the time being.
Toyed? I assure you, no one is more serious about...
What was it you said? The defendant was in the room the very moment the crime occurred? How can you possibly know this? That's a good question. How indeed? The answer is simple, Your Honor. The prosecution has a decisive witness.
Hee hee hee. You're as good as they say you are.
So someone else was in the room the night of the crime. That must mean they witnessed the crime. Everything up until now has been a warm-up, Justice. Are you ready? Very well. The prosecution may call its first witness to the stand.
Okay, can I voice the witness?
Sure.
Oh.
Go ahead. By the way, she's Russian.
The witness
Okay.
must state her name and profession.
Hold on just a moment. Where's the witness?
I surmise that she has been frightened by the defense's demonic-looking horns.
So I used a little hair gel. Relax, people. Have no fear. If any horns point in your direction, this court will cut them off.
You are sure?
I swear it on my gavel. Please, come out. Isn't violence against hair a crime, Your Honor?
Well, if you are sure it is okay.
Now the prosecution... wait a minute. Would the prosecution care to explain the witnesses... whatever that is.
Miniature camera.
Yes! She's a professional, Your Honor. These are mainly the tools of her trade.
And that would be...
My name is Olga Orly. I'm employed as waitress in Borscht Bowl Club restaurant.
Then why the camera?
Of course, it is my pride to serve borscht that is naming restaurant. But I also perform, how's it said, other service.
I take it one of those other services is taking the customer's pictures?
Da. Like For example, this one.
That's the defendant?
Indeed, on the night of the murder.
Man in white hat is one who has gone kaput.
Indeed, that is the victim. Order! Order! It's quite a piece of evidence you casually dropped into our laps.
It's the same way as I drop cold bowls of borscht on laps of customers, casually.
Then the court will casually accept this new evidence.
Now, witness, where were you at the time of the murder?
I was in room, the hideout, we call it.
Excuse me? The hideout?
It is a room where famous gangster bad guy was arrested. It is a room where murder took place.
What?
Your look of utter surprise. It is lovely. I will post by courtroom door later for you. Da. Photos will be numbered, and you will write which ones you want a copy of.
So there were 3 people in the room at the time of the crime? The victim, Shady Smith, Mr. Wright, and Olga Orley, our witness. And if Mr. Wright isn't the killer, that means... Very well, witness. You will testify to the court about the night's events.
That night, customer asked me to deal cards for a game. He was cold, both players with hats on. The victim, he plays whole time with hands on locket at his neck. Then, last hand is done, but something terrible has happened. The man flew at victim and is strangling him to death. Okay, that's the clear contradiction right there.
Incidentally, who won the game?
Isn't it obvious? The winner was the victim, Mr. Smith.
That's ridiculous. Because Mr. Wright can't lose. Justice? Maybe you can come up with a more legitimate objection. But he hasn't lost in 7 years.
Take it from me, kid. It happens. I didn't lose a case my first 7 years as prosecutor, either. Incidentally, I have some evidence here. These are the poker chips as they lay the very moment of the crime. The hand and chips on the side belong to the defendant, Mr. Wright. Those on the far side belong to the victim, Mr. Smith.
Chips, you say?
Yes. Imagine that poker is war. Your hand is your army, and the chips are your spoils.
I know that. After all, in my youth I was known as the poker head of courtroom number 3. I think he means poker...
I thought it was courtroom number 4.
I think he means poker face. Looking at this picture, it does seem that most of the chips are on the victim's side of the table. Very well. The defense may cross-examine the witness. Yeah, this one's pretty obvious. Man threw the victim in and strangling him to death.
Present the bottle.
No, the autopsy.
Oh, that works too.
Oh, really? Strangled, you say? That's odd.
Normal customers only choke on borscht.
No, I mean this report shows that the victim died of a blow to the head.
Ack.
Miss Orley, really now? Did you witness the crime?
Yeek! I grab everything in midair. Like nothing ever happened.
Looking at the picture, it doesn't seem like he was hit. He's still wearing his hat and everything.
Yet it is a fact that he was hit, Your Honor. Here's a photo we took of the victim with his hat off during our investigation.
Well, that's quite shocking, isn't it? This head certainly was hit. Crime photo 2, added to the court record.
But I have seen it happen. The defendant, he lunged at the victim with his neck.
Oh, really, Miss O'Reilly? I think it's pronounced O'Reilly.
Orly. It's pronounced Orly. You need to do thick Russian accent to get it right.
Oh God.
Oh, frames. Probably Discord.
Yeah. There's probably a way for me to lower Discord's quality. Let's see. What's this? Oh, user settings. Voice and video. No, there's no way. They haven't implemented that in yet, unfortunately. Let's just see if I can...
Yeah.
raised its OBS's process priority.
I also changed it to whereas I wasn't sending audio the whole time. I now have to press a button. That's the most I can do on my end.
Oh, I know what else I can do. I can lower the process priority of Discord. Oh, it's already set to high.
That's probably why.
You know what? That's as good as I'll be able to get it. Let me know if it's unreadable.
All right.
Elliot. I'm talking to Elliot.
Oh, okay.
Justice, I admire your enthusiasm, but perhaps you should think this through once more. What do you mean? I found a contradiction. There's one thing in her testimony that troubles me. Very well. It seems we should continue the cross-examination. There's such a thing as thinking too much. This horse is dead. Let's stop beating it. There's such a thing as thinking aloud too much, too. Alright. At night, customer asked me to deal cards for game. It was cold. Both players played with hats on. Da. The victim he played whole time with his hand unlocked on his neck. Last hand is done, but something terrible has happened. The defendant tried to strangle victim. He hit him with a bottle. Go ahead. I believe you know what it is you need to do. Right, sir. Leave it to me. There were only 3 people in the room at the time of the murder. The victim, Shaddy Smith, Mr. Wright, and if Mr. Wright isn't the killer, I've got you now, Orly. Night customer asked me to deal cards. Both players played with hats on.
Maybe you should try about the
hand
locket.
on locket on
because
his neck. Yeah. His locket.
I believe it was Good Luck Chan. Yes. He gripped it many times as he played last night. That night.
Yes, he must have felt as though it might carry him to the moon and the stars. Though if it were small enough to fit around his neck, it wouldn't have much lift. The defense would like a clarification. This is a locket we're talking about. I mean, a pendant with a picture in it, right? Not a rocket. Of course, I knew that. It was probably a pendant shaped like a rocket. That's why she called it that. No, a locket's a locket. It doesn't matter which... It's considered bad form to poke fun at the hard of hearing in our society. Hard of hearing or hard of understanding?
So what happened next?
Then last hand is done, but something terrible has happened. After defendant tried to strangle victim, he hit him with bottle. I'm gonna save first.
Saving is always good. Okay, if they tried to strangle him, they would have found
Wait, hang on.
choke marks.
Gotcha! You know, there was one curious part in her testimony, just like Mr. Gavin said. But what does it mean? Mr. Justice, would you care to explain what the screen just went black? What the crap? Just thinking so intently about? Recall the testimony, Your Honor. The victim played with his hand on locket at his neck, I believe she said.
I hope you aren't about to raise an objection to the witness's grammar.
No, but look at this photograph. Do you see a locket at the victim's neck? Well done, Justice. I'm impressed. I knew you'd be able to handle this, but what does it mean? If we are to believe the witness's testimony as is, then the locket disappeared following the victim's death. Lockets don't just disappear, Your Honor. It's quite simple when you think about it. If the locket is gone, someone must have taken it off, no? Taken it off? Wait, you don't mean... The defendant wasn't strangling the victim at all. He was taking off his locket. Wouldn't that explain it? Ah! Defendant, what do you have to say to this? Say. Yes? I just noticed this, but you have something hanging around your neck, don't you? Oh, you mean this? Yes, it's a locket. With a photograph inside. A photo of my daughter. Come again? Mr. Wright, you have a daughter?
We confirmed it at the time of the arrest. The picture in the locket is indeed Mr. Wright's daughter.
So Mr. Wright has a locket too. Why don't I buy it, but this is just a coincidence? Well now, if the results of this poker game led to the murder, perhaps we should hear a bit more about the outcome of the game.
Further testimony won't really be necessary. It's clear the defendant lost. Badly.
Miss Orley, you will testify to the court about the game played between the victim and the defendant.
Da.
Serious competition.
The game began with 3,500 pointed chips for each man. House chips come in two sizes, small and large. The one who is winning, it was the victim. For last hand, defendant play with all chips on table and lose. The moment the loss was decided, defendant grabs bottle from table end.
Indeed, looking at this picture, it does seem to be a one-sided game.
As the court knows, poker was the defendant's life. Failure must have been a bitter pill to swallow.
Ah, how many times have I heard those words? I done it in a fit of anger, Your Honor, and now I regret what I done. A common tale, but true. Methinks the judge watches too many old court movies. Mr. Wright said he hadn't lost in 7 years, so this testimony must be wrong. Alright. I think I know what to do. House chips come in two sizes, small and large. I'll press on that first.
Yeah, you want to figure out how much each is worth.
Are the chips in the photo all the chips that were used?
Of course.
Something's fishy with these chips. Should I press harder? Yes, press harder. Maybe you could explain a bit about these chips.
Explain? What is there to be explained?
Poker chips are poker chips. They're not fish and chips. Not a chip off the old block. Not a motorcycle cop. Not a...
Thanks. Now that I've pressed her, I'd better ask something. What are these chips worth? Are they in dollars or rubles, or rubles even?
Yet, as I was saying before, it was game, not gambling. Or perhaps for capitalists to understand. Two types of chips. 100 points and 1000 points chip. It is not money. Take a look at the photo again.
Justice. Sir! Don't you find her comment interesting? In more ways
Go
than
to
one,
the
sir.
court record.
I'd have it added to the testimony myself.
Go to the poker table. That is way more than 7,000 points on the table right there. Already.
Yep. Well, does the defendant want the witness to add to her testimony? Yes, I do think this deserves further scrutiny. Add it to the testimony. I wish I knew where I was going with this. Very well, witness, if you would be so kind. Well, here's something you need to think about. Which size chips are worth which? One kind of chip is worth 100
I'd press
points. One
here.
other kind is worth 1,000. I might just present, but let's try pressing first. Mr. Gavin said the testimony is important. To be honest, I have no idea why. Mr. Justice, do the court a favor and think about what you say before raising your hand. We are not in kindergarten. Sorry, I'm fine. I better think of something to ask him quick. The two types of chips.
Da.
The small ones are 100 and the big ones are 1,000. Right? Right? Of course.
Ha! Don't waste our time!
Is that all? Yeah. Great. Mr. Gavin made me stop her, and now I'm the one who looks dumb. Oh, Justice, please try not to embarrass me like that. Who? Me? There's a clear contradiction in the information you have in your hands. What? It's a simple matter of calculation. Go on, try it. We're not in kindergarten after all. Calculation. Yeah, this one's pretty obvious. Gotta present, the photo. You're sure it was the victim who won? Absolutely sure.
It seems our new attorney is a bit confused. A glance at the picture is enough to tell you who won. If you're not in kindergarten...
Just for safety's sake, could you explain the problem to the court? Of course, Your Honor. In this photo, I see small chips and I see large chips. Tell me, which were worth 1,000 points?
Why, the big ones, of course. Duh!
Oh, I thought so too. But then the totals don't add up.
The totals?
Let's review what the witness told us. Each man started with 3,500 points in chips, and the combined total value of the chips was 7,000 points. Yes, if my calculations are correct. Let's see. 3 plus 1 carry the 5. They are, Your Honor. Now, look at this photo that allegedly shows all the chips. If the big chips are worth 1,000 points and the small chips are worth 100, and you add them up...
How much is it?
Do it yourself. You aren't in kindergarten, are you? 10,600 points. The chips don't add up. This clearly contradicts the witness's testimony.
But why? How could this be?
Exactly, Justice. Now that you know the what, you must determine the why. Right. There's only one possible way to explain this contradiction. Starting points were wrong, chip count was wrong, both were right.
Both are right because
Yeah.
if you have the red ones be 1,000, it
Yeah.
is 1,000 exactly.
Each man began the game with 3,500 points. If all the chips are indeed shown in this photograph, then there can only be one answer. Well, what is it? The value of the chips was the other way around.
What?
Want to know what I think? The small chips were worth 1,000 points, not the big ones.
Madness! Utter madness!
Show me the photograph of the chips again. There's 6 small chips and 10 large chips. Why, that does make 7,000 points when you add them up. Excellent work, Justice. It's almost as though you figured it out by yourself. Well, I'm just glad I was the one who said it.
But wait! The value of the chips may be different, but that changes nothing!
Indeed.
It does.
The victim did have the larger number of chips still. Ah! Exactly. If the small chips are 1,000 points and the large chips are 100, let's do a little math. Add up the points for each side of the table.
Ah!
4,100
The victim...
compared to 2,900.
The victim had 2,900 and... yeah, 4,100 points. Well now, it seems that Mr. Wright was winning that night after all.
The That's impossible!
My client had even less reason to kill the victim. After all, he was winning.
Yard!
Now, Miss Orley, you must have known the true value of the chips, since you were there at the scene of the crime. Weren't you?
Eek! Grab borscht.
Order! Order! It appears our defendant has lost his motive, and Mr. Wright's supposed defeat never happened. We must now ask ourselves whether we can trust the... Excuse me, what is it, Miss Orley?
Wait a second. Hold it! Just wanted to do that one.
Yeah.
I did not want to be saying this, but... Actually, you see,
See what, Miss Orley? What do we see?
in the last hand, there was cheat.
A cheat? You don't mean a trick?
Wait, what do you mean? A scam? They're all the same thing.
Yes, there was cheat in the last hand. That is why a game ends with chips as they are.
Great, just great. First we have lying, now cheating. Well, this case certainly has taken a turn for the interesting. Witness, you will please testify to the court. Tell us about this cheating in the final hand.
The last hand, both men had the full house. There is 4 cards of each card deck, from ace to king. If you look at both men's hands, cheat is more obvious.
Let's try doing exactly that then. Alright.
There's no contradiction there.
Okay.
There are 4 aces, 3 kings, and 3 sevens. The next moment, game becomes argument. The defendant's trick was exposed. He took a bottle in hand, poor Mr. Smith. Hello again, Mustachio Hut.
Miss Orley, why did you not tell the court about this from the very beginning? I thought I smelled a cover up here. Well, folks, it's time to throw back the covers. A full house is a very high-scoring hand. Not easy to make in my experience.
That alone is enough to suspect less than scrupulous tactics.
Mr. Gavin, what's a full house?
Lawyers these days, you don't know your poker.
I can't say this bodes well for your case or career. What is this, some kind of secret court poker ring? Justice, you know the terms 1 pair, 2 pair, and 3 of a kind, yes? Yeah, no problem. 2 cards with the same number make a pair, and 3 make 3 of a kind. Good. Now picture a hand with 1 pair and 1 3 of a kind. That's a full house. That doesn't sound very easy to make, does it? You can see
each player's hand in the photo.
Wow, they both have full houses.
We forget there's an easy way to make a full house and go undefeated for 7 years. You cheat.
The defense may cross-examine the witness. If he did cheat in the last hand, it still leaves one important question. Mr. Wright lost that hand. Who ever heard of a professional con man losing when they cheat? Alright, I think this one's fairly obvious, but I'm gonna save anyway.
And the horrifically horrifying Jeopardy wait music commences for about 10 seconds.
The last hand, both men had full house. There's 4 of each card in deck, from ace to king. If you look at both men's hands, cheating more obvious. Press first. How is it clear?
Well, the defendant, he played a 5th ace. No, he did not.
No, he didn't. A 5th ace.
I still remember both hands very well. Sorry, I'm forgetting to press the V button. Mr. Smith's hand had 3 aces. And Mr. Wright's 2.
Obviously, cheating was afoot, or should I say, a hand!
Your Honor, perhaps this can be added to the testimony without Mr. Payne's joke. Very well, the witness will add this detail to her testimony, please.
Alright,
Now we present
the
this.
photo to that specific one.
It appears the witness is mistaken.
Mistaken? But my name.
Look, this piece of evidence clearly contradicts what you said in your testimony. That's the photo of the chips, is it not? Justice, perhaps you ought to explain your point in a way that the judge can comprehend. In other words, you know what? I just remembered Christoph Gavin is German, so I've been giving him more of a British accent. Oops.
Do the medic voice.
In other words, use your finger to point out your point. Yes, please point out the contradiction in this photo. What particular point contradicts the witness's testimony?
Alright, do it on, like, the king and black ace on his hand. No.
Oh yeah, who played a 5th ace?
Yes, exactly right. Not, like, those 2 kings and aces right there. That's where you want to do it.
No, I think it's this one, because it said the
No. It said that the victim played 3 aces and 2 kings.
Oh. Miss Orley, in your testimony, you made the following claim. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces. But as you can clearly see, the victim's hand only held 2 aces.
Well, or maybe the witness was simply confused. Perhaps it was the defendant's hand that held the 3rd ace in question. Screw yourself, Winston Payne!
Objection.
Let's take another look at the evidence. As you can see, the defendant also had 2 aces in his hand. I gotta make my voice more raspy for him. Where's this 5th ace? I see cheating, alright, and it's going on here in this courtroom. Nice line. 2 aces in each player's hand does make 4 aces total. Hardly proof of cheating.
Wait, please. It is true. I have seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating. I swear to you.
That's odd. She must be lying yet. She's the most sincere I've seen her all day. You're right to trust your instincts, Mr. Gavin. Who knows what lies in store for us in the trial ahead? Your Honor, if I may, I have a suggestion. What might that be, Mr. Gavin? If you don't mind, perhaps we might examine the actual cards. The cards? Mr. Payne.
Yes?
The players' hands that night were set aside as evidence, were they not? The defense would like to request that the cards be shown to the court. Very well, the prosecutor will submit this evidence. Which will you examine? The victim's cards or the defendant's cards? If these cards don't prove cheating was going on, nothing will. Now, which of these hands is more suspicious? View victim's hand. It was the victim's hand that changed over the course of the witness's testimony. The defense requests time to examine Mr. Smith's cards. Very well. Mr. Payne, if you would.
Very well!
Received evidence. Victim's hand. Alright, let's check it. Well times are wasting. Get to it, Justice.
Flip them around.
How do I zoom in? Okay. Oh yeah, I got it. You gotta use
there's an ace on the back of one of the kings.
Nope.
Or
one of them
4
was
of
blue.
them were red and one of them was blue.
Only one of the cards has a blue back. I'm much more of a red guy myself. Blue is so not red, you know?
But blue is so much more mechanical. And, you know,
Yes, sir.
blue.
Oh, it's gonna make me do it again, just for tutorial sake. When examining evidence, make sure to view it from all sides and angles. Try using the dials on the evidence viewer. That should give you a better perspective on the case. Okay, let's do this. I kinda already did this. What? Your Honor, look at this. It's one of the victim's cards. The back is a different color.
The terrible hair. That's impossible. But I put that card in my hand. Hack.
What was that, Miss Orley?
No, yet. I merely said, I have eek.
Your Honor. Mr. Gavin, yes? Tell me, what is the easiest way to cheat at poker? To cheat? I'll tell you. One merely needs a friend, a comrade, shall we say. The dealer. Oh, god dang it, Elliot. Wait, so you mean this witness, Miss Orley, she's the cheater, a professional, I'd wager.
Yeah. My borscht. Again.
Order! Order! Focus, Justice. Time to take advantage of her. Of her mistake. Your Honor, please recall the testimony we just heard.
That's impossible. But they put that card in my hand.
Ergo,
I've been doing a terrible voice.
Miss Olga Orley conspired to cheat, not with my client, but with the victim, Mr. Shady Smith. Or Shady Smith.
Rogue. Okay, just change the voice there, I'm sorry.
Not only did she cheat, she cheated poorly. Therefore, it's not hard to imagine an altercation between her and the victim.
What?
Wait, you don't mean the defense isn't accusing the witness, Miss Olga Orley, are you? Time for justice. There were 3 people in the room at the time of the incident, and if Mr. Wright isn't guilty, that means I am. The defense accuses the witness, Miss Olga Orley, of murder.
Eek!
Sorry. Faints.
Thanks. Except my borscht, it falls very nicely on table. Does not spill.
Mr. Payne, where's your witness, Miss Olga Orley?
It appears she has lost her consciousness, Your Honor.
Mr. Justice. Your Honor, it seems you've presented a new possibility to the court, one suggesting a connection between the witness and the victim, Mr. Smith. And that means this court cannot pronounce a verdict for the defendant at this time.
What?
I did it. I held out. I see no point in prolonging the trial this day. The prosecution will need to make further inquiries. Mr. Wright? You can't end the trial here, Your Honor. Not yet.
What nonsense is the defendant spewing now?
Think. One of the cards has a different colored back. Don't you wonder what it means?
Oh, what are you doing, Mr. Wright? Raising objections right when you're about to get off the hook? Ridiculous!
Mr. Payne, you of all people should know. Mr. Wright has a talent for the ridiculous.
Very true.
Perhaps we should get to the bottom of things. Let's clear up the facts about the game that fateful night. As was said before, we alternated between 2 decks of cards that night.
That was said before.
The 2 decks at the club have different colored backs, blue and red, 1 color per deck. Why use different colored backs? If we use the same color, the 2 decks might get mixed. You use different colors and they still got mixed up. We used the red deck for the last game. I see, but that's odd. For some reason, I have this impression that you were using the blue cards. Yeah, me too. I'm sure someone said something about blue cards.
Whatever! In the end, 1 card of the wrong color got into the mix, which means there was cheating.
Yes, a card slipped into the deck would seem to indicate cheating. Yet, this card raises 2 serious questions. Apollo? Yes? Let's consider the first question, shall we? Think. In the last game, when was the card swapped? When? There are 3 broad possibilities here. It could have been swapped before the murder, during the murder, or after the murder.
Well, yeah! Thanks for the news bulletin, Mr. Wright. Of course it was swapped.
Oh? It might be as simple as you think, Mr. Payne. Or it might not be. I'd like to hear what Apollo thinks first. When do you think the cards were swapped? When was the card swapped into the deck?
Okay, if you can save here, save here.
Yes, I can.
My gut says that it was switched after the murder.
Not sure. Let's try that, but I feel like that's one of the obvious ones. Perhaps it happened after the murder.
Objection! What's that? Ridiculous. What's the point of cheating after the hands have been shown?
Oh wait, that's the most inobvious one.
However,
Yes, but tell me, how do you swap cards during the game? I'll take silly over impossible.
Take it from me, son. There are a lot of silly in this world, but very little impossible.
Oh? Even when the backs of the cards are a different color? If you pulled that during the game, you'd be caught in no time. Ah! Quite true. That would mean that the blue card in question was swapped after the hands were shown, after the murder.
told you so.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going past silly and straight on into crazy. I ask again, what's the point of cheating after the game's over? Who would do that?
Who indeed? That's one of the mysteries before us.
There's another?
Yes, a simple yet decisive question must be asked. Who swapped the red card for a blue card? Who? The game and murder is done. The victim is dead. Only two remain in the room. Alive, that is. The defendant, Phoenix Wright, and our witness, Olga Orly. Okay, so who is it that swapped the red card for a blue? Phoenix Wright, Olga Orly, someone else.
Mr. Payne.
Let me check the court record.
I don't think it would be something else. Let's go back into the court record.
Hang on, let me bring it over to the other side. Huh.
You know, you really
know
should
what?
have gotten the other hand as well.
You know what? I'm gonna go with someone else. The one who swapped the cards wasn't Mr. Wright, of course. And, well, it doesn't seem like it could have been Miss Olga Orly either.
What are you suggesting?
That's hardly a logical conclusion, I'll admit. As the defense, I think it only makes sense for you to name Miss Orly at this point. Yes, I know, but she was the one who dealt the cards, right? I just can't believe she would make this mistake of swapping the wrong color card. And if the card was swapped during the game, it'd be obvious.
Something you'd like to share with the court, Mr. Wright?
Oh, my apologies, Your Honor. I was just thinking how much fun all this is.
Fun? How about confusing? I have no idea what the defense is claiming, Your Honor. If the one who swapped the cards wasn't the defendant and wasn't Miss Orly, then who was it?
Yeah, well, that is the question, isn't it? Precisely.
Huh?
I believe we're about to see the case take a new direction.
I could try voice acting some too, even though I'm bad at reading. If you would like me to read too.
Maybe a bit later.
Says-
Maybe a bit later on when new characters are introduced.
A new direction?
We'll find that, indeed, after the murder, someone swapped one of the cards in the victim's hand, and that someone made two critical mistakes. I'm sure you're going to tell us that the first was swapping the wrong color card. Because the one who did the swap didn't know two colors of cards were being used. The other mistake was the number on the card. Right. The person replaced the fifth ace with a king. I'm sure whoever swapped it wasn't expecting there to be a fifth ace after all. All they knew was that the game had been won with a full house, so they picked up a king from the table and swapped it in.
But there's one problem. According to the case record, that person doesn't exist.
True, not until now, but you have to admit the possibility of a fourth person, though it's more than a possibility. There was someone else there that night at the scene of the crime.
What?
I believe the judge spoke truthfully earlier. You do make trials ridiculous, Mr. Wright. I broke my voice there.
The trial is proceeded on one central assumption, namely, that at the time of the incident, there were only 3 people in the room.
I believe this new evidence, shall we say, overturns that assumption?
The problem is that you chose to conceal this information from the court.
I suppose that is a problem, yes.
Court is adjourned for a brief recess. Mr. Gavin, I'll see you in my chambers during this recess.
Certainly, Your Honor.
Very well. The trial will resume in 20 minutes.
April 20th, 11:52 a.m., District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. That was quite unexpected, Mr. Wright. To suddenly claim there was another person at the scene of the crime like that. I must ask, is it the truth? Well now, I think you would know the answer to that. Ah, being mysterious, Avi. Sadly, I have no time for mysteries. I'd only ask that you leave the defending to your defense in the future. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee the outcome. I see you haven't mellowed out one bit, but Christoph. Why did I use that voice? Why did I use the judge's voice? I'm breaking up. Justice. Yes, sir? The judge has summoned me to his chambers, so carry on without me. You did well, Apollo. Can I ask you something? Sure. That locket you wear, is that really yours, Mr. Wright? Ah, you're wondering about the victim's disappearing locket. Here, you can take a look at it. That's a picture of my daughter in there.
Adorbs.
I'm just surprised to hear you had a daughter. Most people are. Perhaps you'll meet her one of these days. One more question. The one who cheated that night, was it you? What do you think? Huh? You know what happened 7 years ago, what I did? It's not unreasonable for you to think I might cheat. I never, honest, but it is odd that you managed to go undefeated for 7 whole years. Want to know something? There's only one game where you can be dealt bad cards all night and still win. Poker. You see, poker is all about reading your opponent. In that way, it's a lot like a court case. Poker is like trial law. Figure out what your opponent is thinking, and you win. Well, yeah, but that's harder than it sounds. I think not. Try as they might to conceal it, everyone reveals their true thoughts in the end. Their body language can become a valuable source of information. You're kidding! That witness, for instance, Miss Orley. She would touch the back of her neck during certain parts of her testimony. Did you notice? No. Come on, who'd notice that? And this becomes the main new mechanic of the entire game. Words, habits, twitches, it's all information for the reading. That's the secret to winning, Apollo. Someone taught me, and now I pass the secret on to you. But I'm not worthy! I mean, there's no way I'll pick up on those signals. No, you can do it. Huh? You just don't know it yet. What's he talking about? But you will, soon. Ah, almost forgot. One more thing. About this case. You should know, I haven't told the truth to anyone yet. What? I knew it. I have my reasons, of course. All shall be revealed. And Apollo, I need you to be there, defending me. I need your power. My, power? I had no idea my cords of steel were that special. It's time. The real trial begins now. Do your best.
To be continued.
Saved cleared data? Yeah, absolutely.
Are we continuing on from this point?
Fuck yeah.
Alright.
Court will now reconvene. Has our witness, Miss Olga Orley, recovered?
Yes, Your Honor. Well, she has regained consciousness.
Perhaps we can hear her version of the events again.
That's the thing, you see, she's quite fatigued.
You're looking a bit fatigued yourself, Mr. Payne. Sadly, fatigue is insufficient grounds for refusing to testify or prosecute. The defense would like to request that Miss Orley take the stand. Very well. The witness will take the stand. Oops. Oh, by the way, you might need to drop your Russian accent here in a second.
Alright.
Perhaps you could repeat your name and profession. Or perhaps you'd rather admit that you're a poor liar and a poorer loser.
Not. Name's Olga Orley. That's the truth. I'm a pro dealer. People call me Olga Quickfingers Orley.
Oh. Oh, really?
Want to know something else? I'm not really Russian. Mine and my last name sounds like, oh really? There's that the truth. I hope you're satisfied.
Witness, you will tell the court what you were really up to that night.
Fine, I'll talk. We had a plan, see?
Let me remind you that you are currently under oath. Any further fabrications will have serious consequences.
Fine. Like I said, I'm a pro. That guy, Smith, hired me to do what I do best. I was planted at the Borscht Pool Club several days prior to the night of the game. As a waitress.
So you were in cahoots with the victim.
Not that he needed my help. Smith is a well-known poker player in some circles. But winning wasn't the main purpose of the game. He was about destroying a legend, the unbeatable Phoenix Wright. The plan was simple, elegant really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts.
I call myself Sam Quickfinger Salesman.
I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When their hands was revealed, Smith would call him out and search Mr. Wright, who would then pull out a planted card, and the trap would snap shut.
You swapped the cards!
Exposed as a cheater, and losing on the top of it, it would have made a great double play. Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces.
Indeed. Getting caught red-handed at cheating would cast doubt on all his prior wins.
A 7-year legend destroyed by one little card. That was the plan.
Oh really, oh really? How droll. But it appears you made quite the mistake.
A mistake.
I agree, the trap was elegant. Yet, what happened to the planted card? Hey, that's right.
He's lucky, I'll give him that. You'd have to be to slip free from a trap laid by Olga Quickfingers Orley.
Oh really? The witness could be would be much cuter if she dispensed with the evil mastermind shtick.
Okay, that's harassment. I'm going to ask you to stop right there and just walk off in another direction. Okay, fine. Cute. Wants to be cute. I'm not cute. I'm bad. You hear me? Bad.
When you're through being bad, perhaps you could testify to the court. Tell us about this trap and how it was sprung.
That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. The next morning, Mr. Wright picked up a bottle and swung it. It wasn't me who hit Smith. It was that no-good cheating defendant.
A surprisingly frank testimony that still leaves us mostly in the dark.
The trap was perfect, I tell you. Perfect. If that rotten cheater hadn't messed up.
Look who's talking!
Well, the testimony, for what it's worth, is all yours, Mr. Justice.
What's witness like her? Who needs criminals? And with defendants like Mr. Wright, who needs prosecutors? That night I played the card like I was supposed to. On Wright lost the last hand, like he was supposed to. This was searching, but the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Next moment. Right.
She grabbed her head on that one. Or her hair.
Yeah. Wait, isn't that a little odd?
What's so odd?
You searched Mr. Wright, thoroughly, and found nothing, which means he didn't cheat, which means he had no reason to strike the victim.
Well,
What was that just now? I sensed something.
Something wrong, Mr. Justice?
No, nothing, Your Honor. What to do? Should I press her a little harder?
Press her harder.
Miss Orley, you're hiding something.
What are you talking about? You. Me? Quick fingers, Orly? Oh.
The defense will refrain from baseless accusations!
I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true?
Of course it's true. I did see it, honest. I saw it when Wright hit him. With my own eyes, I saw it.
What's this weird vibe I'm getting? That witness, for instance, Miss Orley, she would touch the back of her neck during certain parts of her testimony. Did you notice? Touching her neck, was it? Whoa! What's going on?
It's totally
This
drugged.
sensation. It's coming into focus. I'm gonna swap screens here. There, that twitch, it's so clear. It's like I could perceive her habit like I couldn't before. Gotcha! Miss Orley, perhaps you are unaware of this yourself.
Unaware of what?
Whenever you get to a certain part of your testimony, you touch the back of your neck with your left hand.
My neck? So what?
What indeed, Justice? I hadn't noticed anything of the sort. When she says that part of the testimony, she's subconsciously recalling something. Her body reacts to the memory, and she touches her neck. I'm sure of it.
A memory? Would someone care to explain what he's babbling about?
This is highly unusual, but let's ask the defense. You claim the witness is remembering something. Maybe you have evidence of this memory to show us.
Her habit is scratching her neck with whenever she talks about the moment of the crime. My habit is saving whenever I get to a question like this.
Your soul has taken 0.00000000001% of damage.
What is going on? Did eat too much mushrooms because that was trippy. So, what would remind her most of the moment of the crime? Miss Orley, whenever you recall the crime that night, you scratch your neck. I've noticed it happen when you think about the moment of the crime. There must be some reason behind this habit of yours. I believe the weapon that left an irresistible impression on your neck is this thing. Whenever she talks about the moment of the crime, she touches her neck. And what reminds us more of that moment than this bottle, the murder weapon? But something doesn't fit. If you were only the witness to the crime, why would that make you touch your neck like you're in pain?
Well, what's he talking about now?
It was Mr. Smith, the victim, who was hit. Not you!
Objection.
This is a cross-examination, not a cross-wild conjecture. The witness's habits? They're completely irrelevant.
Justice, I'll admit I'm a bit confused myself. This is certainly a unique cross-examination. I'll explain later, just trust me. Now's our only chance to break her. Miss O'Reilly, please testify in detail about the moment of the crime, the very moment.
Yet, I am knowing nothing.
We know you're not Russian.
The witness will testify, please, now.
Fine.
Why does Mr. Payne have such a high voice? I don't know. I didn't design him. I just give him a high voice because that's as high pitched as his objection voice line is. He's the one who did it. I didn't get him out of my let's see. He's the one who did it. I didn't get him out of my sight until the cops got there.
But if You didn't let her out of her sights. How did he get upstairs and call the cops?
Yeah, let's see. Used by the defendant to notify the police from the restaurant's first floor. I think I present the phone, but I'm not certain. Save first.
I just realized I had to press. I was telling you, save here, present the phone.
Oh. Gotcha! Miss Orley, we have a record here that clearly contradicts what you said. It states that the police were alerted by a report from the defendant. And we know that the defendant left the room, climbed the stairs, and made the phone call from the first floor of the Borscht Bowl Club. So, explain how you kept your eyes on the defendant when he left the room entirely.
Yeek! My lobster!
The man who picked up the bottle... Oh, that's you.
The man who picked up the bottle and swung it that night wasn't the defendant. Ooh, back to the nice looking painting.
Showdown time. You dirty cheat! Check his pockets, now! It's gone! The card's gone! You lose. Ah!
Just then, Smith grabbed the bottle from the next to the right. And he hit me.
You, some master of cheating you turned out to be!
When I came to, the victim was already dead.
No, the victim was already
Is
dead.
that it?
Is that it? That's the judge.
That's why I couldn't reveal who I really was. If it came out that I was in league with Mr. Smith, I had to be a suspect for sure.
Well, where does this leave us?
Madness! This is madness! I'm dreaming! It must have been me who was hit with a bottle, and I'm imagining all of this!
It appears our prosecution is at his wit's end, and frankly, I can't blame it. Mr. Gavin, what do you think about this turn of events?
Mr. Gavin, sir? I believe that, as the defense in this case, we are compelled to call Miss Orley a big fat liar.
What? What?
Three were in this room at the night of the murder. The defendant, victim, and her. And she had a motive. A motive? Her plot foiled, the witness got into an argument with her client, Mr. Smith. And the denouement of that argument was murder.
What? I didn't. I'm no killer. It's a trap. It's a trap. Someone's trying to frame me.
What tangled webs we weave when we practice to deceive. So tangled we catch ourselves in the process.
Mr. Wright.
Such a hasty conclusion. It's not like you, Christoph Gavin. What are you saying? Why not consider the other possibility? That there was another person in the room at the time of the murder. Right, like Mr. Wright was saying before recess. A single card was swapped into the victim's hand after the murder. And the one who swapped the cards didn't know that two colors of cards were being used. A fourth person.
Ha! This theory again, your fourth person doesn't exist!
Indeed. That's why I decided to bring this case to court. Here, where there's no escape and no chance for deception. The perfect place to catch the real criminal.
The real criminal?
And we're in luck. A clue to the real criminal's identity was kindly provided for us. And right at the beginning of the trial, no less.
What?
Apollo, perhaps you know what I'm talking about. Sorry. Remember what I said? The fourth person who swapped the cards made one critical error. He or she wasn't considering the color on the back of the cards. Right, but how could such an obvious mistake occur? The card used for the last game were red. Yet, there is one person here, in our court, who thought those cards were blue. Yeah, I had that impression too, but why? Well, Apollo, think. Think you can figure it out who it was?
It's not me, I swear.
Who is this fourth person?
Why do I always get put on the spot like this? Let's hear what the defense has to say. Who was it? Who thought the cards used in the final game were blue?
Who do you think?
It would have to be Mr. Payne, actually.
I hope you're joking. I mean, I'll present if you want me to present him, but...
No. I honestly forgot.
None other than
So-
Christoph Gavin.
As I expected. Your eyes and ears are as sharp as your hair. I was right? Christoph Gavin, you were the fourth person that night. But of course Mr. Gavin knows the color of the cards. How would he? As you can see, the photo of the crime scene is black and white. You can't tell which of the cards are blue, the ones on the floor, or the table. But look! You can see the color in that photo! Yes, but when he said the cards were blue, it was well before this evidence came to light. It is true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim. Yet it was only that, a game, in the purest sense. A competition, Your Honor.
A competition?
Yes, a test of wits, a silent clash of passions. Only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. Well, Christoph? Mr. Gavin?
Mr. Gavin, is something the matter?
No, nothing, excuse me. It was just so sudden. Right, you aren't seriously accusing me, are you? Oh, Christoph? You know, even I'd never take a joke this far.
This has gone beyond ridiculous, beyond dumb. This is insanity. The defendant accusing his own defense attorney of murder?
I assure you, I'm quite sane.
But what possible connection could Mr. Gavin have to the victim?
I wasn't aware that I had a connection to Mr. Smith either.
Yes, but Mr. Gavin and the victim have never even met.
Well, what if they have?
Huh?
There is a possibility, after all. They may have met that night, before the game started.
What are you suggesting?
Is this the truth Mr. Wright was staying silent about? Well, only one thing to do. Mr. Wright, the defense would like to request that you testify to the... The defense would like to request no such thing. Mr. Gavin, testimonies must relate to the case. How could anything happen before the game of poker be related?
It would be related because it would to the events that took place.
I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Gavin.
As I explained before, the defense believes that Miss Orley...
Am I to assume you speak for Mr. Justice in this? He is the defense, not you. Mr. Justice, the matter of Mr. Wright's testimony is up to you.
Oh, okay.
Does the court, in your opinion, need to hear Mr. Wright's testimony? Hear the testimony.
This was Mr. Wright's strategy. He was planning this all along, and I intend to see it through. The defense would like to request that Mr. Wright testify to the court. Et tu, Justice? You would betray me, your teacher? I'm sorry, Mr. Gavin. This isn't about loyalty. This is about the truth.
Very well, the defendant. Mr. Wright will take the stand, please.
That evening, Christoph and I had dinner. We sat at the table in this photograph. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress. The girl was knocked out cold, and Smith was uncontrollable. I left to call the police. When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from a cut in his forehead. That's when I made another phone call to defense attorney Gavin.
Mr. Gavin! You were at the Borscht Bowl Club the night of the murder?
I dine with him rather frequently.
And he talked to the defendant on the phone directly after the murder?
Quite against my will, I had become involved in a murder. I thought I might be in need of a lawyer, so I called him. You were planning this all along, weren't you, Wright? Just because you wanted to drag me into your little murder trial. The only thing I want is the truth. As I did back then, and now. I thought my office was doing you a favor when we took on your defense. It appears that I was wrong. Very well. The defense may cross-examine the witness. Justice. Sir! He's lying, and you're going to expose him. Understood, sir. Mr. Gavin versus Mr. Wright. This can't end well. Why can't I have a normal trial?
You're in an ace attorney game.
That evening, Christoph and I had dinner. We sat at the table in his photograph. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress. The girl was knocked out cold, and Smith was uncontrollable. I'll have to call the police. Let's press this one. And when you returned, the victim was already dead. Yes. I'll admit, I was a little startled when I walked in. Little? He was bleeding from his forehead, after all. I guess I'd be startled too if I walked in on a scene like that, seeing how big my forehead is. That's when I made another phone call to defense attorney Gavin. Hold it there. Could you explain why you called Mr. Gavin? What the crap? I'd obviously gotten into myself into a rather sticky affair, and I figured Christoph's law offices would give me a friend rate for my defense fees. Ah, glad to hear you intend to pay. Oh, I'll pay in full, Christoph. It was I who got you involved, after all. You may find the price of your defense quite high, my good friend. Quite high. Is this the truth that Mr. Wright was talking about? Justice, you know what you have to do. He's lying. Expose him. Now! Yes, sir. I have to think. What's Mr. Wright trying to tell me with this testimony? The truth has to be in there somewhere. That evening, Crystal and I had dinner. We sat at the table in his photograph. You had dinner with Mr. Gavin? Yes. He dined with me at the Borscht Bowl Club quite frequently. We were enjoying a usual dinner at our usual spot, as usual. Usually. I always eat at the table closest to the piano. I see. Where Mr. Smith was sitting. So the plates and
stuff on the table were from your dinner.
Indeed. The remnants of my meal with Christoph. We dined for 2 hours, and then Christoph left. After that... That's a pretty long dinner. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. 5 minutes? So the two of them could have passed in the restaurant during that time. That would have been a fateful encounter, to be sure.
Hee. Oh, Mr. Wright, what was it you said? Christoph Gavin and Shady Smith may have met?
I believe I did say that.
Yeah, I was all nervous about this meeting. And now we hear that it was just passed in the hall.
That does seem a little weak as a pretense for murder.
Oh, it would be, if that was all that really happened. Come on, Mr. Wright, where are you hiding this time? When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress. About this failed trap. Is this the same trap that Miss Olga Orley mentioned?
The plan was simple. Elegant, really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts. I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When their
crap, sorry.
Keep
trigger finger.
You can skip over this one, I've already said it. You
swap the cards!
Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces.
Yes, a harmless prank in essence. It was by a quirk of fate that I happened to discover it.
A quirk?
I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. The card she planted. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game.
Disposed? Where?
There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle.
An empty bottle of grape juice?
The murder weapon! Yes, I rolled it up and shoved it in. The colored glass makes it hard to see.
A battle of wits between the deceiver and the would-be deceived.
I'd take a look at the bottle right now, see if you can see it inside.
You cannot. I know why, but...
Go from the top.
There's no need for that. Sounds like that sounds like terrific drama.
A card inside the murder weapon. That's strange. Did the police miss it in their investigation? Maybe I'll take a look.
Mr. Wright, the poker head of courtroom number 3 approves of this battle of wits. Please revise your testimony with this new information.
Alright, I discovered the trap during the game and disposed of the card in the bottle. What? Your Honor, that statement contradicts the evidence.
It does? I don't see anything contradictory.
You sure about that?
Objection overruled. Try to think before you make accusations, Mr. Justice.
Ah, that didn't go so well. Huh.
Maybe press on this one or like look in the thing.
Why in the bottle? I perceived my opponent's intent immediately. I'm used to entrapments, you see. I knew what was coming.
Ho ho! So you struck first. I like that.
I know every trick in the book. They don't work on me. At least, when you get lucky and stick your hand in your pocket, they don't. The girl was knocked out cold and Smith was uncontrollable. I left to call the police. Alright, I discovered the trap during the game and disposed of the card in the bottle.
This is obviously the one we need to present evidence on. I'm gonna save first. I don't want to lose any more of my health.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
The deck is blue in the photo of chip photo.
Nope. Yeah.
You need to present that somewhere else
Don't so very sure
because it's clearly a blue deck.
I don't think that won me any points with the judge. Discover the trap during the game and dispose of the card in the bottle. You made the call to the police from the first floor of the restaurant, correct?
Exactly. Cell phones don't get a signal down the hideout.
Was anyone else there on the first floor at the time?
Not a soul. It was the middle of the night, after all. So there, in the darkened restaurant, I called the cops. After making the call, I returned to the hideout. It didn't seem right to leave the injured waitress alone.
When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from... We already pressed there. Christoph and I had dinner. We sat at the table in this photograph. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. I discovered the trap during the game and disposed of the card in the bottle.
Try examining the top of it, because there was no top of it in the photos.
The bottle is completely empty. Nope, can't.
That isn't the murder weapon.
Now it lets me present it. What? Mr. Wright, if I may? Yes? I've examined the bottle, and I don't see any card in here.
No?
What, Mr. Wright? Surely isn't you have to say for yourself. I can't say that I know what happened to the card. I did put it in that bottle, however. Perhaps a 5th person came and took it out. Oh, and a 6th person could have helped.
Mr. Gavin, Mr. Wright is your client.
My apologies, Your Honor.
I won't have you disparaging our investigation either. We looked inside that bottle. There was nothing.
So what's going on? Mr. Wright hoodwinking us again? Or did the card just disappear?
In any case, please continue the cross-examination. I'm afraid decisive contradictions call for decisive evidence.
Oh. Push him harder, Justice. Break him. It's just you and the witness in the ring. Go for the KO. Why do I get the feeling we're not on our client's side anymore? Wait, what?
Pressed this one yet?
It's letting me skip it.
You've pressed everything.
Doing it again.
There's a lie there. He turned his head. Smith was uncontrollable. Maybe. Okay, if Smith was uncontrollable, why would Phoenix Wright be allowed to, leave?
Why did I do that?
It's gotta be something with either this statement or the next.
The only one thing I can think of. Let's check this. Nope.
Load save state? I mean, we might as well do everything now that we're doing save states. So... Speaking of doing everything, I'll be right back while you do that.
Alright.
Any luck?
Oh. God, I'm so stupid.
Realization hit you?
Do you see any blood?
There's no blood in the photograph.
Wrong photo. I know my mistake now.
What?
There we go. Gotcha. Mr. Wright, if I may. Yes? Take a look at this photograph from the crime scene. See the victim here? He's wearing a hat. I wouldn't think you could see blood on his forehead. Good point. Justice. Next time you point out an inconsistency, put a little more oomph into it.
Mr. Wright, can you explain this to the court?
Ah, I forgot to mention something. I was the one who put that hat on his head.
You!
You put the hat on the dead man's head?
He wore it throughout an entire poker game. After calling the police, when I returned to the scene, I saw his head shining bright just like in the photograph.
And?
I picked his hat up off the floor and put it on his head.
Why'd you do such a thing like that?
All I can say is, I'm sorry. But that's the only thing I touched at the crime scene.
So, Miss Orley didn't see it. It being the victim's, his head.
That wasn't the judge.
I know. I think not. She was out cold. I believe I was the only one who witnessed his head. Ah, here we go again. Mr. Gavin. Ahem, pardon. It just seems like our client is determined to lie his way through this case. Hey, he's still our client, isn't he? I believe that's enough of that. Mr. Gavin. This witness's testimony is more like a travesty. It's riddled with lies. I'm beginning to see how you came to lose your attorney's badge several years ago. Well, you certainly have a unique way of treating your clients, Christoph. I never knew. I believe it was you who threw the first stone. Mr. Wright, if you intend to ever tell the truth about this case, it's now or never. Don't be misled. I haven't told a single lie here. When I noticed the trap, I put the card in the bottle to dispose of it. And when I put the hat on the victim's head, let's just say I had a reason for doing that as well.
A reason?
That reason is right here. Your cell phone? That night, recall that I spoke with Defense Attorney Gavin after calling the police. Just in case, I recorded our conversation. What's this?
Oh my god.
What's
It's
going
more
on?
things than one. There we go, it seems.
Now that we're all here, I see no reason why I shouldn't play it back for the court. Christoph, I seem to be in a bit of trouble. What's this? Game not going well? Something like that. The gentleman who challenged you, who turned out to be good? He turned out to be dead. Someone hit him. Hard. You mean someone cracked that flawless bone and china plate? China plate. It wasn't you, was it? Me? Please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should it come to that. Bone china plate. A kind of porcelain, very smooth and shiny, and not plate, but pate. I believe he was referring to a certain gentleman's balding forehead.
The court appreciates the defense's discretion in not indicating my forehead.
Wait a second. Something's not right about this phone call. So after Mr. Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Borscht Bowl Club. Most certainly. Then how did he know? When did he see this bone china pate?
Oh, that's right!
Yes, that was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. Troubled, I returned to the crime scene, and when I spotted Mr. Smith's head again, I realized exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, the stage has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court? Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? So, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, has it, Phoenix Wright?
Order! I will have order! Mr. Payne!
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe this court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear Defense Attorney Gavin's testimony?
Well, as a prosecutor,
Very well. We'll break for 10 minutes, after which Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we all clear on that?
Crystal clear, Your Honor.
Very well. This will be the final recess for the day.
Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chambers. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this?
May I?
Huh? What?
Hello, sir. Please pick a card.
What's this all about?
Is this one okay?
Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You'll need a trump card to make it.
A trump card?
The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely and the game is yours. That's all.
Such an adorable daughter.
Where do I remember that card from?
It's your line, dude.
Oh, right. So, Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces, and Mr. Wright's 2. It has 5 aces in all. It is true. I have seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating. I swear to you.
The missing 5th ace. Wait, this botch of red. Is it blood?
You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it.
This blood-stained card is my trump card for finding the truth. I feel deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl, I'd seen her recently, but where? That's when I made the connection.
Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand?
Time for the fun part.
Now then,
Yay.
if you would, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. The witness state his name and occupation.
Is this fast necessary, Your Honor?
Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom.
Fine, I'll play along.
First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat?
By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is this about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin.
Ah yeah, Phoenix's original objection theme.
Yeah! Even though I can't hear it. Give me a second here. And I'm now on the stream.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay, yeah, that is pretty nice music.
Yeah. Mr. Wright, what do you think you're doing, Wright? Wow, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore the hat all night, never once taking it off except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit? Oh! When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, he would have had to be at the scene of the crime. At the time of the crime! In other words, you'd have to be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo.
Mr. Gavin.
I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court.
What?
Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation I see little reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night.
Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night?
That fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked into the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, so I left. That's when the call came from Wright.
So, you witnessed the murder?
For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed.
Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are Mr. Wright's defense team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client.
What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand, after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through the little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that. Because that was the only probable window of opportunity, right, Apollo? Oh!
Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared?
Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. That fateful night. The rage I sensed of that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Marketeers used it, I believe. Why'd you go through the trouble of peeking through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes, what if my fears had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far everything he's saying makes sense.
Wait a second. He goes in through that window. It's not looking outside, it's looking into the hallway. How would Mr. Wright not pass him as he left?
True. Was dead, appears in the photo. Bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Hold it. Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw, at least.
Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright, who else could it have been? But why did you talk to the police?
2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one. Not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah yes, this mysterious 4th person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose? Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap the cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us the reason why such a thing would be necessary? How can I
Trump card time.
I can't find myself. Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out for the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right.
Well, Mr. Justice?
Actually, I don't need to save.
The question of why the killer would swap out a card has been raised. Can you point to a reason?
I'll save state.
And show evidence, because you have it.
It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Hi, Miggle5885. Evidence why they're showing the reason why a card was swapped out.
Go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace?
Do it!
My reason is, this!
Is that an ace?
Why? Why, it's got blood on it! Right next to the spade! What?
This is
Stop
insane!
glitching.
Why wasn't I told about this? Why?
Could this be?
Could this be the missing 5th ace?
Inconceivable! How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Ball Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade, after all. No, no, impossible, unacceptable! The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud! A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason?
The reason
For the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime.
Where are you going with this?
Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down to the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right. Regardless how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh? We can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene, and now I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture, baseless! Oh, I assure you it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. In your head.
Amazing CG.
The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And, before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with the scene.
Well, what is it?
Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? Huh.
Save state.
Yeah.
So much faster, I'm sorry.
I think it's the killer. Well, for one thing, the killer's in the wrong place, I think.
You think? Mr. Justice, your job here is not to think, but to know.
Just looking at you reminds me of the old days. Okay, I was wrong. Alright, if it's not him, then it's the victim. Well, isn't the victim's position the problem? Oh my god. I'm so bad. The second witness's position is the problem. Okay, finally.
The second witness, that would be Mr. Gavin, yes?
The second witness's position is far less problematic than yours right now, Justice. Or perhaps, perilous is a better word.
I cannot see why the bloodstained card has what the bloodstained card has to do with the second witness's location. I'm afraid you're more than in peril of penalty this time.
Oh, what?
Go back. Blood save state.
Maybe I was right this time. Well, isn't the victim's position that's the problem?
I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice.
Well, look. The victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah! Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the card.
Why, that's right. So, what does this mean?
Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh, man. Apollo, try turning the chair around.
The chair was facing the other way?
It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table.
When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing?
When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now that the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder, but this creates another significant contradiction.
Again?
Let's test your reasoning, shall we? Apollo, whose location in the diagram contradicts our new location of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction? This one's really obvious. I don't need to save. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front, sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes.
Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game?
I believe sufficient reason will soon come to light.
Well, what?
There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry, let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing towards the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? The killer had to be standing, well, here!
You get points for flair, but that's about how you get.
I thought I was on something there too.
I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above?
It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there.
What's this now?
I mean, that's the only explanation. Right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine this cupboard in the hideout immediately.
Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard.
Your Honor. What? There's one more thing you men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff.
Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright.
I do my best. But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then the cupboard wasn't here. Which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Thank you.
You see the problem now?
There is no window to look through.
Yep. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it had to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this?
What is it now?
Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion.
Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator is in the diagram contradicts what we know about the crime?
About this cupboard, are we okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. Ah! That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see it. Someone like Mr. Gavin.
What did you just say?
Oh, is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool?
Don't expect me to play along with your little games, right?
It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin, and someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court exactly where did you witness the crime scene from?
Excuse me, Your Honor!
I was the bailiff.
I know. I'll do this for... Excuse me, Your Honor! I'll do the Mike Meekins voice.
Yes.
Order. This is a court of law and I will have order. We just now received a word from our investigative team at the Boys Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. Oh, and what did they find? Well, sir, Your Honor, it turns out there was a secret passage behind it, sir!
What?
Ah, yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the rooms many of our regulars know about.
And technically, if Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright dine there, Mr. Gavin would be a regular.
A secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal goings-on. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses would get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for the few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something.
Dare I ask what really happened that night?
Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith, a date with destiny. Then he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Ah!
Eek!
What? Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. Miss Olga, or really, was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passageway and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look, and after the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him, he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor, and the fact that they were all red! Ugh.
Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin.
Mr. Gavin.
Mr. Payne!
Yes, Your Honor?
The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion.
Gwah!
Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin, but I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately.
Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such a low-grade parlor trick.
Excuse me?
The defendant is cleared of all suspicion? This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. Not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney.
Illegal evidence?
Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin, is there still any reason, at present, to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne?
Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were upside down.
I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. This court and the case demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down, and that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor?
Or to stick a card in it.
Ah, see how the codfish squirms to the last. Well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still, but I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Yeah. Just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than to... Ooh. Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there, in plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions, indeed. Well, Mr. Justice? Mr. Gavin said the court and the case demand an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. Perhaps the defense would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down? This thing. It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair. Excuse me? On the floor? Yes. Now, reach down and pick it up, without getting out of your chair. Ah! See? You naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down. Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times. Wow, I can't believe it was that simple. Recall our dinner that evening, Christoph? I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed, but then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano, and you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. Order,
Because
order,
the
order.
murder weapon that was shown doesn't have a card.
What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin?
Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle... Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation?
Yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Bowl Club. And here's one of the bottles in question.
What? Are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if anywhere on this but his. Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake, true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything. Say,
card.
Apollo? Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine the bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. Wright, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle. There's something inside this bottle. What's this? That card! It can't be! Recall the unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment. Miss Olga O'Reilly? Yes, a little swindling Devochka.
That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost to the hand just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed.
Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was a 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game.
Disposed where?
There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. The 5 of hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped. And the only one who could have done that was the 4th person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin!
And break down fences. Oh my god, he's a necromancer.
That is all. Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright?
Revenge?
Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago. My past is like my logic, straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right?
This is insane! What about me? Do I get to prosecute anyone?
You're too incompetent, Payne. Your voice is too high-pitched.
I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin?
He's admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now.
I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he?
None that we know of.
Mr. Wright, do you have anything to add?
I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter.
About this victim, Mr. Shady Smith. His occupation was listed as traveler. An odd profession, to be sure, and that's all we know about it.
I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Wright?
Yes?
7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch.
Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer.
He was extremely talented, to be sure.
I needed 2 things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who wouldn't tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo.
Me?
A dark time is coming for our legal system, a twisting of justice brought on by our very own court system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright? Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it.
Well, this seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright,
not guilty. Yay!
Court is adjourned. Get the frick out of here.
So, do you work with Phoenix Wright for the remainder of the game? Or
You'll find out.
you can...
Thanks, Apollo. You came through, just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yes, a sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is that true?
Shit, sorry. Of course it's true.
What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer, right. Today was full of questions without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh, wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right, she's my daughter. You know, you were right about the locket. I took this off his neck the night he died, but it looked like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, the locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury! You testified, you said that locket was yours! I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth. Wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside of it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices, after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo? Yes? How about coming to work for me? You mean at the Wright & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. The legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man. Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. Just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence. You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the wrong card in its place. Luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. The rumor is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? Gah! I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in, if you'd like. Mr. Wright. Oh, about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that," next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time.
So, 7 years ago, they'd found that, which case from the last game? You forged evidence in?
It wasn't in the last game. It wasn't in any of the games, actually.
Oh.
And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved, and at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins.
That is the end of case 1.
I'll be doing another stream today, but I feel like first I should give everyone a sneak peek of what's to come in Turnabout Corner.
Maybe I'll have more than just one voice. That'll continue to forget.
As long as we draw breath, the wheel of fate turns. Spinning big crimes and little crimes together. And when the wheel stops, you die. June 15th, 9:12 a.m., Wright & Co. Law Offices. 2 months have passed since Mr. Gavin's arrest. My first trial, and I lost both my mentor and my job. Yeah, I'll admit it, I was screwed. But even when I hit bottom, I told myself I'd never come here. Honest. Here being the legendary Wright & Co. Law Offices. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you all probably in a couple of hours. So take care, continue testing, and best of luck in all of your future endeavors. Bye-bye.